Hey nerds, and welcome back to Comics And. It's me, Danny, back with another interview. Today, I could not be more excited. We've already talked to Martha Cypress herself, Miss Romy Weltman. Today, we are talking to not one, but both of the showrunners, the creators of Revival, Aaron B. Koontz and Luke Boyce. So smash those like buttons, subscribe if you're new, and make sure your notification bell is rung because we're getting ready to pick the minds of the creators behind Revival. Comics And powered by the Red 5 Network. For more, visit red5.bio.link. So, Aaron B. Koontz, Luke Boyce, the creators, the showrunners of Revival. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
It's great to be here.
Thank you. Look, listen, Luke, you were the first person I have asked to interview, or I have interviewed that was a subscriber to my channel, or said like, oh yeah, I know about your channel. I was like, what? I had no idea I was visible. That's amazing. I mean, seriously, that was a gift you've made.
Oh no, I love it. I love it.
Thank you. And I'm so grateful that you guys agreed to do this. Like I'm so excited. I absolutely love Revival. As Aaron, you discovered, that's how we connected. I had said that this show is very reminiscent of my comfort watch, which is late or mid to late 90s, early 2000s SYFY channel series, and that's what this feels like. It has that flavor, and I need more of it. The finale was last night. Okay, the finale is last night as of us recording this. How do you guys feel?
It's weird. I mean, I was talking to Luke about it yesterday a little bit. Like I literally called him just to say, how you doing, buddy? Because on the final day, because it's just checking in with each other, because it was odd. Like after it aired, I just sat there for like the longest time, and I'm looking at tweets and I'm reading what people are saying, but there was some kind of like weird thing that's like, I don't know if it was like an exhale, like a full body exhale, or what it was, but there was something that was leaving my body, and just kind of understanding that I can't believe we've gone through this whole journey and did all of this. Like the episode aired, like the world has seen episode 10. Like that blows my mind, like I still don't quite understand it. So yeah, I'm in a very weird headspace today. Like I truly, like it is unlike, I've had movies where like you release a movie and it's out there and you're like nervous and what it is. This is a different feeling, and I don't know how to quite articulate it, but it's I feel very off.
Yeah,
same. It both yesterday and today have been very emotionally hazy. It's like you're living in anticipation all the time. I mean, and even before we made the show, I mean, Aaron and I were months and months of anticipation of getting a green light, months and months of anticipation of, are we going to get this? Are we going to get that? Is this person going to be cast? Are we going to make our day? Are we going to write, is the finale going to be good? Is this episode going to work? Is this, everything is an anticipation, and you're on edge all the time. And then when the show comes out, you're anticipating, will people respond to this? Will they respond to that? Oh, there's all these fun things coming up. Every week I was like, oh man, that was fun, but I can't wait till they get to this episode. And I can't wait till they see this. And I can't wait to see that. It's years of living on the edge. And then you get to yesterday and today, and you're like, that's it. I mean, there's still anticipation of a season 2, don't get me wrong, but it's like all that big stuff has just sort of settled. And now I don't know how to deal with the settle.
And this has been, for you especially, this has been almost a 10-year journey to get to this point.
Yeah, and I mean, and to be fair, for Aaron, it's been almost a 5-year journey. So I mean, it's for both of us. It's been, quite a trip. I mean, I had to I had to reflect. I started going through pictures a couple days ago, and I was like, I'm gonna post something, I think, just to go through this period, because it is different. We did take a different path than a lot of people take to getting to a show like this. And I thought, if it can inspire someone to just kind of go out and do, something to like really make their dreams come true, I'd like to try to do that. So it's been, it is a powerful experience to see this and know, that all this dreaming that you've done for so long sort of, it culminates, and there it is. There
That's
it is.
beautiful.
It's out of my hands now, to be honest.
That's beautiful. Now, for those who have not seen Revival yet, and they don't know the first thing about it, how would you two explain to them what is Revival?
Well, it's so first it's a murder mystery centered around a small town in Wisconsin where a number of individuals have come back from the dead, but they're not zombies. They look and act just like any of us. And what caused this, what's there, we don't understand, and we're trying to figure out. But then within this small town, one of the people that comes back realizes that they were murdered, and now they must work with the local authorities to solve their own murder.
That's good. I'd watch it.
Yeah, I mean, that was part of my pitch. So I pitched that. That was my pitch for years.
Yeah.
Not years. Actually, it was not a year. Only about a year I pitched, really, and got it. But that was my pitch at the time, was centered around that. Yeah.
That's perfect. Way better than what I could have done, which is why I don't have a show I run.
That's okay. Most people don't, and it's weird. I'm still surprised that we had a show that we ran. So trust me, it's I still think it's not quite real.
Yeah.
There'll be, some, Ashton Kutcher, I'm dating myself, will come out and say we were punked this whole time and it didn't actually air. And there were 25 people that were diehard fans that they paid to like tell us everything,
So is now a good time to tell you that I was paid $150 to.
$150?
Yeah,
I'm upset that you got more than I got from that show. So what's happening here?
Oh my gosh. So what drew you to Revival? Now, Luke, that you kind of started this journey back in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yep.
You were a fan of the comics, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So what drew you in so much that you were like, I've got to put this on TV. I've got to put this on streaming.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge comic fan, so I read a lot. I've read a lot, and 2016, I would say from like 2012 on, Revival kind of came out at a time that I think is this huge golden age for Image Comics. Image Comics was just putting out so many really, really great stories, and it was, I think with as big as the sort of Marvel universe and all that was in the cinematic universe, comics were kind of, those kind of comics that were non-superhero comics were coming to the forefront. And as a little independent filmmaker, I wanted to make comic IP. That's what I wanted to do. But, no one's going to hire me to make Spider-Man 3, right? Or 4, or whatever it is.
Yet.
17 at this point. So, I was like, but this story, I know this story. I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in a small town, 4 hours from Wausau, Wisconsin. I mean, I knew it. I love horror and noir. They're two of my favorite genres and all of anything. And so I just connected with it for many reasons, for personal reasons, for aesthetic reasons. And I happened to know that Tim and Mike were in Chicago, which I live near Chicago. So that made it even more appealing. So, it just spoke to me in different ways. I'd also been writing a story that kind of had quite a lot of similarities. So I sort of, I was like, well, this is a better version of what I'm doing. So like, tone-wise, I'm already there. I kind of already get it. So yeah, as I pursued it, a lot of the reason because of that. And also just the story itself, the characters are so compelling. I mean, Em and Dana Cypress are just, I think that they're incredible characters in the annals of science fiction horror, comic world. So.
And Aaron, when did you come in?
Yeah, so Luke and I made a small movie together. He directed and I produced called Revealer, that was written by Tim Seeley, who's the writer of the comic of Revival, and we just kind of hit it off. Like he was a lot of directors I work with. I produce a lot of movies, produce 25 or so features at this point, and so a lot of directors I work with sometimes can be very difficult. And this was a wonderful experience, and I really liked working with Luke. And so, I was just curious what he was doing next. And he's like, hey, I've got a couple features I'm thinking about, but I have my dream project, which is the rights to this comic, Revival. And I had not read Revival, but I'd read Hackslash. So I knew Tim Seeley's work a little bit. And then one of my partners at my company, Sean Talley, was a huge Tim Seeley fan. And he was like, oh man, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff here. That's really, really rad. And I had done some research on him when we were making the movie. So I knew like, okay, this is kind of cool. Like this is in the comic world, and I would love to get more into the comic world. I read them a lot when I was a kid and kind of like separated from them as I got older. And what's interesting is this show has totally reinvigorated that. And I'm literally reading comics like every night right now, again, which is really, really fun, both for like just enjoyment and then also things I'm like, what else could I make, or what else is out there, and that kind of stuff, which is fun to do. But yeah, and Luke said it to me. I think the original intention was really as a feature, and but open to any adaptation. And I read that first issue, and I was like, this is a pilot. It just felt like a pilot, and I was so immediately compelled. I love the characters. This idea of this like Fargo world with like supernatural shit going on within that. A murder mystery. The Cypress family was so interesting. This like mishmash of people. It was a very diverse comic, which was interesting to take place in Wausau, which is actually a diverse city, and which surprised people. And so I thought it scratched so many different itches. And and I was like, look, not only do I want to help you make this, I want to make it. Like this isn't going to be me producing or whatever. Like I want to let's start this journey together, and you and I, let's partner up and let's make this thing. And they were very gracious. I met with Tim and talked to Tim and Mike and talked to them about it as well. And Luke and his partners who had the rights to the comic, granted us a shopping agreement. And then I started shopping it, and went to a bunch of places and talked to HBO and AMC and had good conversations and things. HBO loved it, except for it was too close to True Detective Night Country and a little bit of Mayor of Easttown. So they were like, this is, they said an upcoming show. They didn't tell me which one, but very clearly was True Detective Night Country that I didn't realize. But I had an existing relationship with the SYFY folks and over at NBC, and went to them, and the rest is history, which is crazy. So it didn't take that long to kind of get going, but I knew the characters left off the page. It was such an interesting world, and a murder mystery noir with a supernatural twist is pretty rad. And so I was all in from the get-go.
It's such a good partnership with SYFY. Like that I'm telling you, that had to be like the magic thing right there when SYFY's like, yes. Like, what did that feel like when the SYFY channel is like, we want to make this. This is perfect for us.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love SYFY. I mean, they've had so much great stuff, and they've really, for many years, they have been really good to the comics world, to the Image Comics world in particular. They've had stuff like Deadly Class and things like that, and so we knew that they understood the world. And I also knew, just like I would constantly see, like Sci-Fi Wire would have interviews with Tim Seeley all the time, and they would have a focus on that. And I was like, man, this is some Sci-Fi's wheelhouse. They should just make this right. So it's like perfect for them. So yeah, but there's also sort of that you want to get in there. It's funny because I remember thinking early on in the process of, okay, could we make the show independently, and how much can you make a show for, at a smaller cost? And I remember reading, actually, funny enough, articles with Emily Andrus, who did Winona Earp, and talking about how they made Winona Earp for so cheap and what they would do. And, not realizing that, years later, the connection there would be stronger than I had imagined at that point. But yeah, and we wanted to also take the sci-fi world farther, right? We wanted to push the production value, the production quality, even when our budgetary restrictions were very palpable. But that's kind of what we do. We like to sort of put those dollars on screen. So we felt like it was a right home, but we also felt like it was a good challenge at the same time.
Yeah. Our motto, my company, is put the dollars on the screen. Horror with heart, two things that we're always focused on. And SYFY was going to kind of require us, to think about this a little differently, like an indie film kind of mindset, which Luke and I very much come from. So I think that played well. But also they could move fast. That was the other thing, was SYFY was a machine that was kind of going, and they needed content. They wanted to get back into originals, and they needed some. So it was there. And versus like the AMC conversations, they were interested, but that could have taken, we'd probably still be negotiating, now, and what it is. And I make a lot of movies, make a lot of stuff. Like, I want to keep busy. I am not someone that's like, I'm going to wait for the bigger thing or whatever. I want to make it. I want to make stuff. And then I like the challenge of that. And I've seen great shows on SYFY. Mm-hmm. So I know what's capable. I know what's possible. But we were going to try to push it, as far as, and I'm not saying that we're a better show. But what I'm saying is our ambition, though, was going to be beyond what the budget would normally dictate a show like this should be. And that was going to be, and I'm sure other showrunners have done the same, but it was something very specific for us to say, okay, so this is the boundary. Well, we're going to say this is the boundary. And then we're even going to go beyond that. And then just keep going until someone forces us to stop, and somehow we're here. Yeah.
Well, it's paid off. I think this first season has just, it had my attention the entire time. And I told you, Aaron, my boyfriend put his phone down and didn't pick it back up. And you said, well, that's the goal. Yeah. Get people off their phones.
I love that's the bar now, right? Like I've heard this a couple of times now, and I keep thinking, man, it's that we've gotten to that being the bar is certainly interesting. But I get it. I'm the same way. If a show makes me put my phone down,
you got something. And if you want, I've watched every episode multiple times. I didn't get to watch the finale last night because of technical difficulties. Thank you, Spectrum. May or may not cut that out. Anyway, couldn't watch it last night. So I watched it this morning and then immediately watched it again. I've watched it 2.5 times today.
Oh my God.
Just really good. I told Luke that it made me feel like I needed to call my sister, tell her I loved her. It was powerful. It was so good. That first episode, and this is something Romy and I talked about, that first episode matches that first comic. Mm-hmm. So absolutely perfectly. And you're right. That first comic is a pilot. And that's one of the great things I've always felt about with comic books is, it's all done for you. Like the storyboard, it's like, it's right there for you. You've got panels and stuff, but you did make changes. For instance, instead of the Hmong people, it is now the indigenous peoples of Wisconsin. What inspired those choices in making those changes from the comic?
Well, I will say, it's interesting you say that about that the comic is done for you, and that's kind of a common idea, and we hear that a lot. It's like, like I remember people would come to us in some cases. Tim and I had a thing where they're like, can we make this as a comic to sell as a property? And it's like, we're storyboarding already, but that's actually not really the case, because timing in comics is very, very different than movies and television. It's very, very compressed. So you have a certain amount of panels in a page and a certain amount of words that you can have on a page, and then it's all in 20 pages or so. And both, since we did an offset, another comic for Revealer, it's just like a one-off that Aaron and I both contributed to. There was like multiple stories in there, and it was interesting. It was interesting to move from, the screenwriting, which we very much know, to writing for a comic. And I quickly learned, like, oh my gosh, you have to, the economy needed in a comic is tenfold to what you have in a show or a movie, and that's still, you still have to have economy. So when you're moving from a comic to a show, you have to fill in a lot of blanks.
Gotcha.
You also have all these different restrictions. In our show, there's commercial breaks. So that's one thing. We have a certain amount of commercial breaks. We have a certain amount of time for each, act that gets to that. And then we're limited by the time of the episode. So we're on cable. So we have to hit that 42 and a half minutes no matter what. So, those restrictions tell you how you need to craft a story for maximum impact. And because of that, you sort of have to hit touchstones at a certain point within that. And in order to do that, you have to adjust and make changes. Like a comic, that you can't go from a 1-to-1 of points and story from this one thing to that other thing, as much as you'd love to. And and it's great in the first issue that we were able to do that, in the pilot. But even then, we had to change it. We knew that we wanted to make that murder mystery stronger, and so we had to change the horse storyline, and we had to do all this stuff. So right away, you're maneuvering, and then that maneuvering makes the story is organic. The story tells you, and the characters tell you what the story is going to be. And a lot of what Aaron and I do in development is just try to listen and try to find what that is, to say, okay, what would this character do? What would they say? Where would they go next? What's the logical thing? And that takes you on the ride. It's just as much the story taking you on that ride as it is you in your head putting it down on paper.
Yeah, once you've developed those characters, they're going to tell you a lot of where it is you need to go. And there's a lot of times that we talk about what was between the panels. And so that was a common discussion, and that I really think that for Dana to get here, she should have had these interactions or this background or these things. And then for M to get where she wanted to get, like for a big thing we changed is we added all this backstory of M, with the drug abuse and the OI and the brittle bone disease, which go hand in hand. And especially in mid 2000s, we also changed the time frame for when the comic takes place for a variety of reasons. And so all these things start to kind of, but we knew that the first issue of the comic and then the pilot would be relatively paralleled, but that would also was to kind of lure in the comic readers to think, oh, this is just going to be, they could do 47 issues of this then, 47 episodes of this. And we knew that was not where it was going to go. And it was fun to set up, and we did this throughout the season, where we set up an expectation that it looks like it's going to go like the comic. And then we zig when you think we're going to zag. And then there's other times where it looks like we're not doing the comic, like the finale, and then it comes back around, And so that was always fun to kind of set that up and to play with the expectations of the comic reader in conjunction with someone who never read the comic and is only just watching the show. Now,
let's go back to the Osteogenesis Imperfecta. What inspired that specific choice?
So for me, like, I'm a big believer in beating up your main characters, right? So it's like, you think of, honestly, the first, I don't even know if I've talked to Luke about this. The first idea that I had related to that was because Nemo, his fin, he had a bad fin in Finding Nemo.
We did.
Yeah. And so I think Finding Nemo is a great example of a movie where you just have this little fish that's against the world trying to accomplish the unaccomplishable, right? And you do all this stuff, but you also give him a bad fin. And I remember thinking, like, let's give him a bad fin, right? And in the simple version of that is a limp and different things. And actually, Dana originally, when she goes into the woods with the horse, originally there was a chase that took place there and had to get cut. And then she actually hurts her leg and she has a limp throughout a lot of the season was a thing. She actually really messes up her ankle, but we cut that. But that's because I always want to kind of do that. But I think then the other part of this was to take something that could, like, when you look at someone in this line that we had that was in our show Bible, which was, I had to die to feel alive. And the idea of this deconstruction of the life that she had lived, and that had to die in order for her to finally be free, and the sheltering that would create. So when you have OI and you have Wayne as a father, he's already going to be waning things here and there, right? But when you add in that, like, literally my little girl is this brittle and can be hurt, and she also can't be hugged sometimes, like, to that level, that's just a really sad thing to add to that. And then, you take that, you get in a car accident, your bones are breaking all the time. It's early 2000s. the opioid epidemic is going to, especially Wisconsin, is going to wreak havoc in there, and that's going to become a part of her story too. And it adds more, another bad Finn, you know. And so you're just continuing to add conflict onto this, so that way there's this release when she is revived, right? There is this massive release to M, and I thought that was a really fun arc to have. And then even more pointedly, when you get to episode 6, she's literally having to break her own bones in order to save her life, right? And using this thing that all the time, like she's so scared of doing that, and she turns her own broken bones into a weapon. I just thought was just a really beautiful thing, if I may, to try to write and push for. So, but yeah, it really started with Nemo's bad Finn.
I'm really trying hard to keep it together because there are some things that Luke knows about me that you do not.
Oh.
So I did ask Luke, I said, do you guys have someone in your life, someone that you care about, someone that you love that is physically disabled, regarding the character of M? And he said, wow, it's crazy that you asked that, because, and I told him, I said, it's the reason why I'm asking is because I am physically disabled, and the condition I have is extremely close to Osteogenesis Imperfecta. And I grew up in Shriners Hospital for children in St. Louis. And my closest friend and roommate, who was, you know, like a sister to me, she had Osteogenesis Imperfecta. She passed away a few years ago. And watching this show, and it's weird that you said little Finn, because I'm missing my right leg. I have a prosthetic. And when Nemo came out, my mother called me crying, you have a little Finn. Like, it was, anyway, you kept saying that. I was like my mom in my head. But watching M, watching her with, and this is the first time in my recollection that I've seen a superhero of this type, a superhero whose disability becomes their superpower. And that's a very powerful thing, especially for someone who has grown up with that and had to deal with the intrusive thoughts and the feeling left out, and the actual feelings of not entirely being a part of the human race, or, you know, just feeling different and ostracized and singled out. The way she is written and portrayed is so eerily dead on. It's so well done. I really wish I showed my late friend's daughter, and I said, you've got to watch this. Your mother would have just absolutely loved this. But for someone who has grown up that way and has dealt with a lot of those issues that M does, this was a very powerful thing for me to watch. I mean, very powerful. I mean, just how cool is that? Someone who has messed up bones, extremely tiny, messed up little bones. And I'm seeing that being portrayed as a power, as a weapon. Like, that was just absolutely, I don't know how to describe it. But for anyone who says that representation or whatever doesn't matter, you've probably already seen yourself on TV, or you've not seen it done well. But in my opinion, this was done extremely well, very empathetically. Now, Luke, to you first, like, is there someone special in your life that kind of inspired some of this? Because to me, it felt like you had to have some kind of inside information or some insight to this to be able to pull off this kind of character and storyline.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's weird. It's weird how when you're creating things can sink into them without you even realizing it. And you mentioned this to me before, and the second you said it, because I just hadn't given it thought. But yes, I had my best friend growing up. His name was Mike. He had muscular dystrophy, and he was in second grade. He came into town in second grade, and he walked for about a year, and then he was in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. And it was weird. was weird growing up because, you know, he was my best friend, but we were told that he was going to pass away probably in the next couple of years. So I remember in 2nd grade, you know, my parents had to pull me aside and say, listen, you know, Mike might not make it past 5th grade. And then he did. And then we had to be told, listen, Mike might not make it past high school. And he did. And that continued on. And he actually finally passed, I think, roughly 6 years ago or something like that. I can't remember the exact date. But he went to college and he got married and he had a kid. And, you know, his condition got progressively worse and worse and worse. And it was amazing. But he was the valedictorian of my class. I mean, he was incredibly smart. And I spent most of my time away from my house at his house. And he was a massive sports fan. And I remember, you know, that a lot of my interest in NBA actually comes from Mike. Mike was the biggest Bulls fan in the planet. And he ended up going into sports management.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, he's an inspiration in my life, and just how, you know, dealing with that. But you know, growing up with someone like that, you know, you do stop seeing that thing, you know, the disability or whatever it is, and they just, you know, they're there. And so I don't even think about that with him. You know, it's just sort of like he was just Mike, you know what I mean? And he's no different than my other friends. So yeah, but it's not something that I specifically, you know, in writing the story, that I intentionally felt like I drew from. If it was there, it was unintentional, and it didn't even occur to me until you brought it up. So yeah, that was a special moment because it gave me time to reflect on that. So I appreciate that, and I thank you.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I didn't even know that. Like, that's amazing. Danny, by the way, that's just like a very touching story and moving. And just to hear you say that, and just knowing that at any moment, if our silly show gives you some sense of, you know, it's funny you mentioned the people like, oh, we don't need representation. Like, those are the people that have clearly just been represented. That's it. Like so that's all that's coming from. And everybody wants to feel seen, you know. I mean, that's our journey in life, is everyone wants to feel seen at some point. And so if that gave you anything, that is literally why we make the show.
Yep.
Right. It's just for the opportunity for something like that to happen.
And you know, Mike, I'm sorry, amazing. I did not mean to step on your verbal toes there, but there have been so many times where I see the token disabled character, and like in my case, I'm an amputee, and they'll show an amputee, and they keep this amputee in shorts 24/7, 365. They don't give them any other, you know, depth or whatever. They're just the amputee. They're in the shorts, so you remember they're the amputee. Like, we don't wear pants or something. Like, it's very shallow, and they're very one-dimensional, and it perpetuates this idea that is the cornerstone of our personality. That's all we are. We don't have any other, you know, likes, dislikes, depth, anything else. We're just the amputee. We're just the token disabled, you know. And this is one of those rare occasions where that is absolutely not the case. And not only is she incredibly complex, incredibly deep, incredibly human, but she's also the hero. She's the hero. She's the lead. And that's something that, in my recollection, I could very well be wrong. It happens every once in a while, but don't tell my husband. It's not something I've seen before, and I'm trying very hard not to be emotional right now, because it was something that's very, very, very cool. Like, listen, I grew up obsessed with superheroes, sci-fi, and comic books and stuff, reading those things, watching those shows while I was in Shriners, getting myself cut apart and put back together multiple times. And to be able to see those two parts of my life come together, you know, those two things that are very important to me and that I care about come together. It's just super cool. Like, I don't know what else to say. It's just so cool. And I've gotten lady emotions all over the place.
No, they're emotions. They're just emotions.
Yeah.
Luke and I cry more than any woman we know. So don't even worry about that. Than anyone we know. Like, we cry all the time. Yeah. We literally both cried yesterday. So like
multiple times.
and you're about to make me cry just thinking about it, because it's why we do the show. Like, you try to, it starts with this idea of like a bad Finn, and I don't have anyone that at least that I can think of that I drew that connection to, but I did so much research and read so much, because Luke and I had written the first 2 episodes before we got to the writer's room. And I remember going through episode 2, and that's when we're learning, we set the groundwork. But the opening of episode 2, the original open, was actually her with her doctor. And she's being taught, they're talking to her about her disease and what's happened and what's going on. And he's prescribing, because her bones are breaking, and he's prescribing Oxycontin to her.
That's reality.
Yeah. And what's there, and like, the instant release that started to happen at that time, which is really what got people there. And, my connection to all that was my brother is a recovering opioid addict. So I knew a lot from that side, and I had seen what that had done to him. So I had that to kind of understand. And that's where a lot of that came from. But also, again, to me, it was a logical thing that going through this, especially during this time period, that this was just a very common thing that people went through. And what's there. But, whenever I'm meandering here and rambling a bit, but I just wanted to mention that, like, I think when you're making a show, like when I was growing up, TV, movies and all that were my escape. And I had a very complicated childhood, to say the least. And some things people will be surprised in my childhood, and like
relatable.
And but the thing that got me through so much was a movie or a TV show, something that I could escape. And it was whatever's going on in the world didn't matter, because in these 90 minutes or these couple hours, I was in a different world, and I had this empathy for these characters, and I just wanted them to survive. I just wanted them to get through whatever turmoil they were in. And now that we give that escape to people, and then not only can it be an escape, but it also can help someone feel seen. I don't care what happens to the show. Like, I mean, I hope we get a season 2. Luke and I have, I think, a very ambitious, wonderful vision for a few seasons here. But if that's what comes out of it, and there's people like you out there that have had that, then we have accomplished our goal 100%.
Yeah. Amen.
I really appreciate what you guys have done, and I thank you for that. But
yeah,
speaking, go ahead.
Well, I'll say one last thing too. I will say also, I do want to give a shout out to Heather Taylor, who was in our group and was even helped me learn sometimes about levels of representation for not only for just like invisible disabilities as well. Dana has ADHD, undiagnosed ADHD, and what's there too. There's other aspects within the family that, might be alluded to in future seasons. And this was something that Heather was a great advocate for and helped us understand, and contextualize and what's there. And, I mean, even like when M was the ability to heal. And originally there was a storyline where maybe she was healing someone that was blind and different things. And, and we talked with Heather about it, and she's like, no, actually, you don't want to make it look like someone can't be alive until they can see. Like, that's not the thing. It's like, oh, you're right. Like, I'm thinking of this so reductively as far as what this is. Whereas our whole journey is talking about someone who can be alive regardless of this, because her bones still break. Her bones still break. She is not healed from her disease. She will heal after. Her bones will connect again faster. But that's still a part of her. And the disease is so much more than just her bones breaking. It's all of the mental, the aspect, the societal aspects, all these things that have gone through her and have permeated her entire life. So, but Heather in particular, I think, was a really wonderful, just an advocate for that, understood that perspective very well and helped us represent it on screen. So I think she made it better, and I just want to give her a shout out.
Well, I'm going to have to talk to Heather now too.
She'll talk to you. She has a podcast too. So yeah.
That's
right.
Awesome. How did you guys go about your casting process for M and Dana and Wayne? Because dude, you got Winona Earp and Jag. Like
Yeah. I mean, it was exhaustive. We spent a lot of time looking for Dana. We wanted to, that had to be right. Dana's the domino, that sets everything off. So, we spent a lot of time trying to find that perfect person, and Mel was very clear. It was funny enough, Mel was sort of our first option, but there was a lot of cooks in the kitchen that had to make these decisions. And so it, you know, it kind of came back around to her, funny enough. And now that I look at it, I was like, there was never any other choice. It was, you know, Mel all along, and she's incredible. But it forced us to also, you know, have to, we saw a lot of M's. We saw hundreds of auditions for M's. We did want to get someone that we felt, you know, we looked at options that we knew might be more popular or marketable names. That was always something, you know, to think about. But we knew that, like, we would love to have M be somebody a little bit less recognizable, someone new that we could showcase, that could, you know, could break out. And right away, we both saw Romy, and I think we looked at each other in the room, and I was crying, and Aaron was crying, and we're like, is this it? I think this.
But didn't even know we were looking at the same tape.
No,
really.
So, like, I see Luke.
We were just going.
Yeah, we were in the same this big office where we were shooting, and where we were going to shoot, and like, we're kind of catty corner, you know, where the office was. And I look up and I see Luke is crying, and I'm getting emotional, and I look up and I'm like, and this would happen. Like, we're like, okay, we got to go watch tapes right now.
Yeah.
Like, this is our time. And we put our headphones on, you know, and I'll be like, oh dude, have you seen? And he's like, oh man, have you, you know, and we're always back and forth with everyone. And Romy really leapt off the page, if you will. And it was just something so special. There was something that I wanted to protect in her, you know, like that, which is good, because you want someone that you want to protect, so that way when they reach this point of being, she's the most powerful person in the world right now, right? And so, and we wanted someone small in stature. You know, we didn't want the superhero that was, you know, even as like a 5'9", you know, like Wonder Woman. We didn't want Wonder Woman. We wanted 5'1", small, you know, that could surprise you, you know, and what's there. And so there was something about that. And I will say too, because I was looking at this, because people were screenshotting the last shot of the show, and we're looking at, you know, her face in some regards, not spoiling anything, but, you know, for a variety of reasons, we're looking at her face.
I think I know.
And yeah, and but her eyes, I think, are, there's something about them. Like, I cast from eyes all the time. I mean, one of the first things I do is I look at the eyes, and it's such a big deal. And I'm obsessed with glasses, and obsessed with, like, this area of the face, like, so much is like a big deal to me. And her eyes are big and emotive and moody and emo, and just like they can rip your soul out, but they can also be so beautiful and haunting. So that was something that was important. And I remember, like, the last couple M's we were looking at, I remember I was ranking on eyes. I was like, okay, like they all had great eyes. That was like a thing. And then it was, how do they pair with Dana? How do they pair with Melanie? You know, what's there? And then, do I want to protect them? And then, do I see them going? Because when they audition the emotional scenes, you know, in the first few episodes. Like, I think it was her on the bridge with Rhodey. That was like a big audition scene that was there. And then also in episode 2, where she's like, I just need to get away. Leave me alone. You know, I don't need your help, you know, and that. And it was trying to find, but then knowing what she's going to do in episode 6. Because you can't really audition episode 6. Like, what am I going to do? Get you, like, stabby and go crazy? Like, that's like, so, like, but knowing, it's like, do I want to see this, you know, Walter White thing where there's this person who's like a teacher that's calm and all this, and then becomes this drug kingpin? And I know, and we're going further, by the way, if we're able to have season 2 and where M's going to go. And that was just a really fun journey. And so, but yeah, I'm meandering again, but I think that's where a lot of that came from. And it became pretty quick that it was Romy. You know, it was completely Romy, and then from there, everything else you're able to kind of figure out, like, you know, different parts, but and who could be Wayne and all that, but I think you had to get the sisters. Like, that was it. Like, the show fails if you don't have the sisters working, you know, and even if other stuff doesn't work, as long as the sisters work, the show can also work, right? Like, there's that inverse of that as well. That, like, there's a baseline, a safety net, if you can just make these sisters work. because we could always lean into more of them together. And I think it's really evident in the car scene in the pilot. I think is just them talking and what's there and feeling that relationship, so that can set up. And then once you get to episode 10, you realize what we're setting up for. And
well,
it's really special. Yeah.
And in this, I'll even add to that what I find interesting about this season is that Dana doesn't really have a strong arc. There's not much of an arc there, right? So other than the fact that, she wants to leave at the beginning of the show, and then she realizes that she is going to stay. And, so that's an arc. There's something there. But in reality, Dana's arc is M's arc. So M has a huge arc, as we know. Like, she goes through incredible, massive change. But if you don't buy that these two people are linked together, are, that what is happening to M affects Dana and vice versa, then none of it works. None of it works. And we knew that, like Aaron said, we knew that in the car scene for sure. So, it's not just about, does Mel work as Dana great, or does Romy work as M great? Which they both do. It's also, do they work together? When they're together, do you buy it? And I think one of the most rewarding things from this whole season for me has been seeing how people have fallen so desperately in love, not with the individuals, but with the collective, the Dana and M collective, the two of them together. And we saw it right away. I remember, like, the longer the season went on, that we kept filming, it was just like Aaron and I fell desperately in love with these two sisters, this relationship, which is imperative because this is a story about sisters. So
I definitely saw Dana's arc in her relationship with her sister. That was her arc, how they got along, how they related to one another in that car, and then down to episode 9 and episode 10, that it takes on a huge change. And that's sisters, man.
Yeah,
we go through that. We absolutely do.
Right. We had that adventure together. That's what that's about. It's going from sort of a disconnect, this sort of semi estrangement, to no, it's ride or die. You know what I mean? Like, that connection. So yeah, you are right that relationship is the arc for both of them.
Who's the Alkaline Trio fan here?
That was very much me.
I love
Alkaline Trio, Census Fail.
Mm-hmm.
Taking Back Sunday at one point was going to be in.
From St. Louis.
Oh, really? I didn't think I
aren't they?
That.
No, that's is that
no, I think they're New Jersey. I think
yeah, there's Story of the Year. They're from St.
Story of the
Louis.
Year, yeah. But no, Alkaline Trio, my brother has an Alkaline Trio tattoo on his arm, and we saw them in concert together, growing up, and still big Alk 3.
I'm an old punk rocker. I've got it tattooed on my wrist.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love like that era of the like emo screamo punk phase, But that was very much my thing, and I would like to put more of it in.
I think you should.
In future seasons. See, Luke hears that.
Yeah, and maybe some Against Me. I really love Against Me.
Sure. Yeah. Totally. Yeah, From Autumn to Ashes was considered.
We talked a lot about how M, look, M is 20 in 2008. So I mean, that is, like, for me, I'm not as big of a fan of that music. I know it because my younger brother Micah, was in the scene. He had a band called So Long Forgotten that was an emo screamo band, and they toured all over the place. And it was funny because one of the things that Aaron and I connected on initially was that they would go to what was the festival? It was Cornerstone. Yes. So my brother played Cornerstone every year, and then I found out that Aaron would go to Cornerstone every year. So, I didn't do it. It wasn't my scene, but I know it very, very well because my younger brother Micah, and we actually featured some of his music in the show and episode.
Oh, 3. That's super cool.
Yeah. So it's like I don't have that as strong of a personal connection to it, but from a story perspective, to me, that is M's music. And I don't know Census Fail, but like when I hear that part in the thing and it's like to M, it feels so right to me. It feels so good because it just feels authentic and it feels real to me.
So the lyrics to that song too, Buried a Lie. It's literally, the song's called Buried a Lie. And she's saying, don't tell dad because she came back from the dead. Yeah. Come on. It was great. And then there's so much more that's in there. It's almost actually too on the nose for me. Sometimes like I don't like when the music is telling you exactly what's going on, but every now and then certain parallels could kind of work. The Used was also almost in the show.
I've seen that.
Yeah. So it was fun. But just to clarify, Cornerstone is what we're talking about, and what we really bonded over was a very, very specific subsect of Christian screamo. Yeah. Because I grew up in a Christian home, and so Luke and I both did. That was a thing. Like Cornerstone was a Christian music thing, and that's where I was able to I would see MXPX and
I love MXPX. That's
Magnified Plaid.
Oh my god!
They used to sign. Do you remember when they used to sign rocks? They would give out like at shows. They would give out a rock, and they would just write MXPX on it. And I had tons of rocks. I had 15 rocks. But all of the because MXPX started out in a Christian label, called Tooth and Nail.
Yep.
And so Tooth and Nail, I went to all the Tooth and Nail shows and all this stuff. But that was so the Christian, and I will say, if we're lucky to have a season 2, there is a character that we would like to bring in that would maybe represent the Christian emo phase, and maybe now is like in the Christian youth pastor world.
If you don't include the song Chick Magnet, you're failing at your job.
Oh my God, that's so funny. But yeah, can be considered. We'll let the music supervisors know. Let them know. Yeah. Standards.
Yeah. Okay, I want my credit for that. Anyway, I'll send you the spelling of my name. So, what are your favorite episodes?
So, yeah, I mean, we kind of have 6 and 8 are both of our
6 and 8. Those are our babies. Yeah,
6 is mine.
We wrote both of them. 6 is fine. That's it. Just fine.
No, I said 6 is mine. 6
I thought you just said 6 is fine.
Oh,
I was like, okay.
No, she breaks her arm.
No,
breaks her arm and jabs that bone up under his jaw. I mean, that was like, yes. That's so cool. You know how many times people tell me, well, if I were you, I would just take your leg off and beat him with it. I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. Like, they come up with something original. But she uses that disability. She's like, oh, wait, my bone's brittle. Snap, jab. I'm like, yes. It's incredible. I loved it.
We had to fight for that. I mean, we had to fight. I mean, nobody wanted to do that stunt. Like everybody was like, no, just kill him normal. It doesn't matter. We don't have time. And it was like, and I'm like, no. They're like, well, what if it's just broken? And I'm like, no, she must make the decision to break her own bones. Someone who has had her bones broken inadvertently and accidentally her entire life. She is deciding in the moment to do the thing that she's always been fearful of doing in order to save her life. Like that was, to me, that was the whole point, and that was what we were trying to accomplish. And yeah, I mean, 6 was, originally Luke and I talked about that being like an episode of 24, like it was like real time, and it really does. Like once it gets to that point and you reveal the shooter and Dana's fight in the hospital, which love the way that Samir, our director, shot that, and the music video and the whole thing, and playing Never Surrender from Kickboxer, and just, you talk about those like era sci-fi shows. What I love about those shows and what we leaned into was I want the show to be pulpy. Like I like the pulpy shows. I like the ones that are, it's not all too serious all the time, and even though we have high stakes drama and melodrama and we want you to care and feel and all that, and that's probably the biggest driver of the show, there's still a pulpiness, there's still a fun aspect, there's still a tongue-in-cheek, that we want to lean into, and we're always going to. And I think that's part of what hopefully makes the show a little unique. But yeah, Luke and I wrote 6 and 8, and then 8 we wrote alongside Ashley Park, a wonderful writer from a writer's room. But they're not our favorites because we wrote them. I will say unfairly, because we're the showrunners, we picked those episodes for us to write because we knew how much what was going to happen and what we wanted to do. So we were like, sorry, everyone, we're writing these one.
I was gonna say, like,
perks of being the boss.
We talked right. One of the first things we talked about was, when we were trying to structure this thing, we knew that this was sort of, in a way, this is like M's origin story, right? She is a superhero in a certain fashion, and this is her origin story. And we were like, when we get to the Chuck Brothers part, however that plays out, this is the turning point for M. This is M's big turning point. She changes from this point on. And so we were like, wherever that lands, and we kind of knew it would land somewhere in the middle of the season. We're like, wherever that lands, we're doing it. I mean, because we knew how impactful that was going to be. It was structured that way. And then from the very beginning, we also talked about having a departure episode as well. We really wanted to do a departure episode. We loved those episodes in The Last of Us with the Bill and Frank episode, or I love the Dark Quiet Death episode and Mythic Quest, those kind of things where you're just like, okay, let's take a step back from our normal story and let's sort of tell a different story, that's still related to our story, but it's just, the lens is slightly different. So, that was another thing that we knew we wanted to do. And as we were structuring it, we kind of figured out, okay, I think that's going to be 8. So those are the 2 episodes that we really, lasered into, and we're like, this is the stuff we want to do.
Yeah. I was looking at we had a Miro board where Luke and I were kind of putting these ideas together, and I was looking at the like OG Miro board from 2 years ago or whatever it was. And one of the things that was always there was it said episode 8, Black Deer. Mm-hmm. And we always knew that like we wanted to build to believing that Black Deer was or the masked man, which is revealed to be Jesse Blackdeer, spoilers, I guess, but that they would be a big suspect in the case at a particular point. And then we wanted to show you that they're not that. And then also, more importantly, that Dana was right? Yeah. Like that Dana has this egg on her face, and that this is going to be an opportunity to show Dana was right. And Jesse Blackdeer in the comics does some kind of like bad things, I mean, he's still redeemable in the comics, and actually is supposed to do worse things and doesn't do it because he is reminded of his daughter's passing. And it just felt like there was more to that story that I thought we could tell. And it just became really fascinating to focus on, what this Indigenous story could be and represent it properly. And then also talk about what that means. The fact that there are murdered and missing Indigenous women is such a unbelievably sad, horrific thing that is happening every single day.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't want to just gloss by this. Like, I want to do it, and talk about it. And we brought on a wonderful consultant through Luke, Jim Terry, who was also worked on the comic and was helping as well, and to try to represent this properly. But it was a tough episode because, you're so like, hey, this is all Dana, and it needs to be this investigation. And the original version of that was all Jesse and Rose. Mm-hmm. It was like literally like an entire episode of just Jesse and Rose. And I wish we could have done it because I think it was beautiful. And I think it actually would have been possibly the best episode of the season, but was going to be hard for first-time showrunners on SYFY to do an entire episode like that. That really was our Bill and Frank, from last year. I mean, that's what the entire framework was. We do that a little, because we are still doing a big part of the flashback. And I'm still so proud. Like I said, it's one of our favorite episodes. It's probably my 1B to 1A of 6. Mm-hmm. But it still could have been even more. But that's okay. But that was an important story to tell. And by the way, I will mention, we didn't necessarily. It's interesting you said that we replaced the Hmong storylines in the comic with this. So we still want to explore all that. Like in our minds, like that all still exists. We have Mei Tao and there are other characters that will kind of lean into that. And originally we had some background with Mei Tao that's a little different from the comic that would start to go into some of the Hmong representation that is in Wausau, which is a very, very large percent of the population there. So it was 42.5-minute episodes, and we just couldn't get into all that for what we wanted to do. But again, it's another, it's in our show Bible. Yeah. So if we're lucky into season 2, we'd want to dig into that a little bit further for sure.
And when would we find out? Like, when will we know we're getting season 2? Like, is there a time frame on that, or is it just like?
Let me check my email right now. Let's see here. Refresh. Got a bunch of emails. I'm literally checking. No, I do not
No.
have an email yet. Sorry.
Yeah, well.
Could have been. I would have broken it. I would have had no problem.
Yeah, broken the story.
Sorry, Deadline, Hollywood Reporter, Comic Sans, got it. The exclusive. But yeah, we don't know. We don't know. We're patiently waiting. We knew that we were going to have to air all 10 episodes. They do need to air on Peacock. So, and we've, as of the recording of this, it's the Friday after the finale aired on SYFY. So we will next week it'll be on Peacock, and then we'll start to see what those numbers are. So you probably need another week after that. So we're probably at least 2 weeks before they can analyze the numbers, understand what's there, and then get together and understand what does that mean for them. And because there were a lot of chefs in the kitchen of the making of the show. Like, it's not just SYFY. There was a tie to the USA Network at one point. There's the Peacock aspect. We've also sold the show internationally, so there's international partners. There's Crave in Canada and Bell Media in Canada. There's so many different people that kind of come on board, Dynamic Television, that are all helping figure out, because the days of, there's a couple big streamers you can go to and just pitch the show and they just pay for the whole thing. This is an indie show, like an actual indie show. Like, it's a show that we licensed to NBC and SYFY. So was developed truly independently, which is very rare, but that also comes with challenges. And so the green lighting process is also going to come with challenges. Yeah. But people like yourself that are talking about this and being so gracious to, echo, the calls for a second season are going to help. So, but hopefully in the next month or two.
I have no shame in asking people to make noise. Make noise, please. Yeah. It helps. It really does help. The trending helps. The social media stuff helps. So anybody who's listening to this, if you love the show and you want to see a second season, we need your voice. We do. It does make a difference.
Even if you don't like the show and you want to be in season 2, if you can make enough noise, maybe we'll put you in season 2.
There you go. Hashtag
I'm down.
Revival season 2.
I can be bribed. I can be bribed for sure.
Listen, I like the show and I'm hashtagging. So if I don't get like an extra spot or something, again, you missed opportunity on you. Like, I'm just saying. Like, you need someone to have their leg hanging off or something. I'm your girl.
All right. Noted.
Danny the Torso.
I'm down 100%.
We can do it. Okay, we'll look into that.
Favorite set moments. We got to ask. Favorite set moments. Or location, whatever.
Oh, goodness.
Favorite set. I don't know that I've really sat and thought about this. Because it was our set was, I will say, Aaron and I's experience was insane for many different reasons. So a lot of it's a blur, I will say. What would have been mine?
Yeah, there were, cheating would just be when we were first on set. So the actual first day on set was in episode 5. It's in the hospital. Dana's in the hospital bed, and Ibrahim and Romy are having discussion about protecting Dana and helping Dana. And within there was just a couple moments where I'm just like, is this even working? Like, I haven't seen these actors talk to each other in this way. Like, we have not literally, there was no dual, auditions where you're seeing them against each other. So we had no time to do that. So for the first time, you're seeing them interact and you're just like, is this going to work? And I remember Andy McQueen, who plays Ibrahim in particular, he had this delivery talking about when he says, I wasn't doing this for you. I'm doing this for Dana. And I was like, whoa, I just felt that. Like, I haven't even seen you interact. You just got to know this person. You don't even know Melanie Scrofano yet. You know what I mean? Like, this is so fresh and so new, but I felt it. And I was like, okay, maybe we're safe. So it wasn't that it was the set moment. It was more of like a anxiety building. Like, what have we done? What's going on? Is this going to work? And then I'm like, that worked. And then you see, then it's Romy and she's doing her thing and she's kind of standing up for herself and whatever. And I'm like, that worked. And then you see her get in the bed with Dana and she's there and she hugs her and they're sharing that bed together for a moment and they're sad. And I'm like, that worked. Like, this is beautiful. And so that was like the first like cementing moment of this is 3 of our 4 core, you know? So knowing that was there. You know, I like everything with episode 6 was pretty special. I mean, in the warehouse, you know, with the Chuck brothers, and, you know, we've got CM Punk and we're doing all this crazy stuff. And I'm literally watching 5 foot tall Romy Weltman putting CM Punk in a headlock. and then she's like, here's how I'm going to kill you and all this. And I'm just like, what have we done? Like, this is crazy. You know, this is completely crazy. And that was really surreal. And it was like 4:30 in the morning, and CM Punk, Phil Brooks, we had to fly immediately for something with like some, I don't know, SummerSlam or something with like WWE. And it's all
just some wrestling thing.
Well, I'm literally checking flights. Like, I'm sitting there with our production manager. We're both checking flights back and forth, trying to, because his flight got canceled.
Ugh.
And he had to get there by the next morning and like he had to do a practice thing with I think it was Roman Reigns, and this whole thing. And he's like stressed. I mean, he was stressed. And I'm like, and we're like trying to shoot and get this. Well, we're also trying to, okay, we'll get him in this car. There's a blizzard. We're going to have to drive him to here, then get on this plane, then fly to Toronto, then get on this plane, then fly to Calgary. I mean, it was complete chaos. But there's something about that, I don't know, that I like the just the uncertainty of it, and just
it's exciting.
Like, I got to figure it out, you know, and what was there. But goodness. And then I guess I'd also, maybe it's a cheat, but the barn in episode 1, you know, and we were there and I remember the first time that I was standing right next to her, and I have a bunch of like footage from my phone as I was recording it. And I'm standing right next to Romy, just behind the camera, as Dana runs to her when the scythe goes through her. And it's you know, and she's swinging with like a fake blade there and whatever, which, by the way, that scythe is now sitting at my school at my old school, which is really crazy. I just saw it again.
That's so cool.
A weird thing. But I'm sitting right next to her, and I can see, like, you know, across the camera, and I'm looking straight at Dana, at Melanie, and she screams and then runs toward the lens, right toward me, to her sister who was dying. And her scream, I just got chills right now thinking about it, because I can transport myself back there, gave me absolute chills. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to work. Like, this is not going to work. This is working.
Yeah.
Like, and I think this was the first week or second week of shooting. It was very early on when we did this, and was just amazing, you know. And God, Melanie screams like she has a scream in 10 that just, you know. And oddly enough, the very last thing that we did of all the shooting, all the ADR, everything, was an ADR session with Melanie. When the last thing she did on the entire shoot was scream. And I was like, I remember directing her, I'm just like, let out every frustration you've had, everything that's happened, all the things, like, this is the moment to scream and let that all out. And it was like an interesting thing that the entire show ended on a scream from Melanie, which I thought was fun.
Yeah. I'll say I was thinking about it while you're saying, trying to kind of think through so many different moments, but one of the big ones for me was the first time we really got to see Stephen Ogg play, and it was the scene where he is facing off against Dana and M and Rhodey and they're basically at the compound entrance, the gate. And I remember that day was tough because we were filming. We filmed a bit of this in the late summer, so this was around September, and it was actually really hot. It was like very hot that day. We had a couple people that were kind of struggling with the heat, and it was slowing us down a lot, and we almost didn't get the scene. And it kind of was the kind of thing where, like, Aaron and I had to come in and go, guys, no, you don't understand. If we don't get the scene, this is a problem. It's too big of a scene. We have to get it. And it was kind of tough to get Steven's schedule all perfectly aligned, so we couldn't afford to lose him as well. So we got it, and it was kind of a bit of a scramble. And then we were there, and he comes out of the gate and he starts talking to Dana. And I remember filming it on my phone because it was just like, holy crap, this is incredible. You know, and Aaron specifically had worked very, very hard in getting Og in here. It was a big deal to have him. And, you know, so that was on top of that. But I remember watching it and thinking, you know, Aaron and I immediately went back and we were like, listen, the way that him and Dana interacted, there's so much there. There's so much there. And so we went back and we kind of adjusted some of the verbiage later. We filmed it later, but it happens before the moment where Dana's telling Em in the living room of her house, you know, she's going to go get Blaine. You know, we added this line of like, wait, Blaine Abel is the one who, you know, you saw. That was there because we had really clocked into how powerful their chemistry was together, that we were like, there's so much underneath there. And that kind of helped inform a lot of story that we would kind of add in, especially in 8, because we were writing 8 at the time as well. So we kind of, it was just seeing those two people together and seeing that scene really informed a lot of narrative, a lot of story for it. So that to me was like one of those moments that I just felt, you know, wow, it's so powerful to be able to see this and then go in and sort of, you know, shape it a little bit differently, or shape it more than what was already there.
Yeah, I actually remember, Luke, we were writing episode 8 when they were filming this, and we were in the trailer and we were working on it. And then I got a call. We went back to lunch to pick up after everybody had gone to lunch. Mm-hmm. And we went back and they said, hey, we have to cut the scene.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean you have to? What are you talking about? Like, what has happened? And we won't get into all the reasons why that I did not agree with. And I literally just got on the phone and I said, you're not cutting the scene. Period. Get back out there. You're shooting it. First thing coming back from lunch. Period. End of story. And they're like, well, like, we don't know. I'm like, stop. We're doing it. Period. Moving forward. And the scene's great. And it's in there. And it's ridiculous. That was almost cut. And I remember that. Like, and then we had to go back and we're writing, because 8, again, like we said, it was this first iteration of 8. We had to scrap the whole thing and rewrite it. So we were doing that while we were on set. We would run back to set and we're writing in the trailers and, you know, all this kind of chaos that was going on. But
and if you recall, Aaron, and the other element, I want to say it was like 3 days before, something like that, we had just come up with the bear thing, like the storyline about Bear.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, we got to have him wearing, like, this is this thing, this is in the script.
Yeah.
We have to have him wearing this necklace, this bear claw necklace. And I remember Aaron went online and literally just ordered a bear claw necklace to get in.
Yeah, so it was a handmade.
Rushing it to him on set for his first shoot. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a handmade from like an actual tribe from Ontario. And they handmade these. So it was authentic. It was a beautiful piece, but it wasn't like an Amazon order. You know, it was like, I wanted something that felt authentic, and we were able to get that. But yes, I literally paid for it, got it, ordered 2 different variations of them, and then a backup, and then shipped it immediately. People didn't even know why. And I'm like, put this on Stephen Ogg. He must be wearing this thing. And people are like, what? Why? And I'm like, yeah, they have to. And that's because we're writing stuff that people haven't even read yet or know what we're doing, you know? So
TV is weird.
Yeah.
And man, can he play creepy bastard?
Oh,
well,
my God.
Yeah.
I mean, just backpfeifigest, a face you want to punch.
Yeah.
Like, so good. He did that so good. But Romy said that everyone should do a rewatch and do another rewatch because you guys are obsessed with Easter eggs and put a bunch of little things in there. Is there anything we should be looking out for?
I mean, there's a lot, you know, like I think some of it is, there's obvious things, right? So when you know who the shooter is, if you go back and look at some things with Brent and stuff, there's I guess I give that away. But if you know who the shooter is, you know, you go back and watch, you'll see hints of that. The same thing with with M's killer. There's a ton of hints that are leading up to what that is. And then also the button at the end of 10, right? That's another one. Like, have that button at the end of 10 and then watch that scene of the 2 of them together earlier without saying who this is. Like, I mean, think about what that scene means now when you rewatch that. There's a lot there. So there's a lot of big picture things like that. But then, yeah, there's other little hints to things to come. I mean, some of it I don't necessarily want to say because some of it is set up for season 2 that hasn't been, you know, obviously we're hoping for. what there, and we don't want to give away what that is. But I think, Luke and I have always, we love the things that have rewatchability and that reward someone for paying attention to the minutia and those theories. I'm someone who wanted to have Not Penny's boat tattooed on my hand, at one point. So like, I come from that round the water cooler, making horrible guesses at what Lost was all about.
Yeah.
And I want people to do the same thing here, and with the mysteries of Revival Day go deeper than season 1 has shown. And I think there's a lot there to play with. But yeah, there's a lot of little things, tons, every episode has stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you take the end of 10, for instance, there's, this idea of Dana saying to Kay, I wish you wouldn't have told her, to go to the bridge then.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a reference to literally a line that M says in episode 2, and it just passes by and you don't even think about it. And she's like, yeah, a friend said to go to the bridge. That's all it is. It's just one line which says a friend said to go to bridge. And it's something nobody clocks. It just passes by there. And then suddenly at the very end, one of the major keys of this story is that Dana says to Kay, I wish you hadn't. Dana made the assumption that it was Kay that told her that. So it's that kind of stuff is peppered throughout. I mean, everything matters. Nothing is innocuous. So yeah, we've intentionally done that.
Well, and even and my favorite of all, which is in the car in 1, where she says, yeah, let's go on an adventure together. And then when they're together, M says, we finally got to have that adventure together. And you're realizing that the season effectively was an adventure, and so yeah, there's a lot of things like that. There's obviously one of the biggest ones, is revealed in episode 8 versus episode 1. But, for people who watch episode 1, you see like, oh, here's Maytao, and she's for some reason recording this weird guy, Randy, at night in a cream. And it just feels like this. And I remember at the time, I was like, well, this is just a fun scene. Like this in any other show, it's just a fun intro. Nobody's going to really dissect why would she be there, and in the comic, they don't do that, right? Like she's just there doing this, like on quirky townie jobs. But Dana in episode 7 is like, Maytao was here at 9:00 at night talking to you about quirky townie jobs. That doesn't make sense. Well, that's me in the writer's room saying, I don't know, this doesn't make sense. Like let's give meaning to everything.
Right. Let's use this.
And there's this, I remember when people said there's a moment in 1 where you see Maytao lift the lid and look in it. Right. And people are like, oh, I remember like at my company, they were like, oh, you should cut that. There's no reason for that. And I'm like, oh, you have no idea. Like there is such a reason for that, and what that means. And so, and you need to get to episode 8 to see what that is. But it's just this, there's something that I really enjoy when I'm watching a show and then the creators are doing things narratively that are reminding me that I am in safe hands. And that allows me to go on the journey with them and just like deep dive and say, okay, I don't know what this means. I don't know where that's going, but I know they have a plan because I've seen them establish and set up and pay off that. I only hope that we could reach that level of trust with our audience, but that's what we're going for. And it's believing and it's reciprocal, right? It's a trust in the audience to give us the time to understand that we are going to do that, and the trust in the audience back in us to know that we're not going to just set something up. Like there are things in season 1 that people, if you're really looking at it, that are like, I mean, for example, the Chuck brothers, the boss they work for, we don't answer that in season 1. We know we don't answer that in season 1 because that is something that we wanted to do in season 2. And we wanted to build to. We didn't want it to be a small side story. It's a bigger thing than that. So these are things that, and there's more examples of those that, we have thought of and want to explore and want to have the time to jump into, and are very excited to get to do so if more people can talk about the show.
Well, I will be waiting impatiently for an announcement that season 2 is happening, and for my phone call when you do Danny the Torso.
Sure.
I'm telling you. But I thank you guys so much for doing this, for coming on Little Old Me's channel. I really appreciate it. You guys are so fun to talk to. You're so passionate. And I really just expect great things from both of you. I mean, I told that to Romy too, but I mean, seriously, you could just see it coming out of you guys. Your love for this, the passion, the talent, it is all there. The show is so unique and so intriguing. I'm really looking forward to more. Just really
Well, thank
looking
you.
forward.
Thanks for the support, and yeah, we really, really appreciate it. It means the world.
Yeah, that was. I mean, I just hope we're a tenth of the credit you just gave us. So thank you so much. You know, we're trying. We're just trying to make shit that like Luke and I like at first, and then hopefully it resonates with someone beyond that. So that means a lot. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys. And thank you guys out there. Make sure you've hit the like button and subscribed, and make sure you are watching Revival. You are rewatching it. Talk about it online. Tell all your friends. Hashtag
Please.
Revival Season 2. So, yeah, get it done. We need Season 2. But thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next time.
Disney and Kathleen Kennedy are gonna get you.